Hey guys, I'm the X Gamer, and today I'm going to be talking about Nintendo Switch controllers. Pretty much. Now, I feel like I did this with the Nintendo Wii U, even though that was one of Nintendo's worst selling systems, right up there with the Virtual Boy. But still, the Nintendo Switch, I feel like has this weird duality when it comes to controllers. Felt like for the Wii U, Nintendo did all kinds of amazing and special controllers. Just almost every genre of Nintendo character got a controller, basically, like stylized after them. But amazingly, and it was like officially like licensed by Nintendo. Well, not even licensed; it was officially made by Nintendo. But for some reason, with the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo decided to let third-party manufacturers basically fill that void for some reason, and I don't know why. And it's very unusual. All I know is that there's still a massive variety of Nintendo Switch controllers, and some of them actually do work on PC and Mac and even other devices. Also, amazingly, Nintendo Switch has probably some of the most expensive controllers out there, with obviously the Xenoblade Chronicles controller. Yeah, the official Nintendo Xenoblade Chronicles controller goes for about $200 online. Well, I want to say it's between $100. It's it's up there is all I'm saying. You're gonna have a struggle to find it. And this actually is not the official Nintendo Switch Xenoblade Chronicles controller. How can I prove it? Well, there actually is not any official Nintendo marking. Don't know if the camera's good enough to see that, but there's no official Nintendo marking on it. So, this is actually a knockoff controller that you can get on Amazon for like $30. Way cheaper than that crazy expensive Xenoblade Chronicles controller. Even cheaper than the official Nintendo Pro controller that they sell, which is like right around $60. It's almost always on sale for $60, but sometimes it's all the way up at like 70, sometimes it's 50. So I just feel like Nintendo is really going crazy with the Pro controller prices. So I would rather spend $30 on this controller because it works. It does almost everything the Pro controller does, except for scan amiibos. But I want to say a lot of people don't have as many amiibos as I do. Okay, and the next controller I think I'm gonna have to bring up is it's kind of amazing Nintendo didn't do a controller like this themselves. Because technically they did do this like way like decades ago. But then they discontinued that controller and well, if you're a Smash Bros. Player, you may already know about one of these special Pro controllers that looks like a GameCube controller. This one is made by a weird Chinese company. Um, Again, this is like way cheaper than any official like Pro controller or anything like that. But it's basically just a Pro controller, all the internals of a Pro controller basically, and it looks like a GameCube controller. And it was made by some third party like Chinese manufacturer. You can get this one again on Amazon for about $25. There's probably multiple different sellers. I do not know the name. Literally just search on Amazon Nintendo Switch Pro controllers and you'll find it. It's $25. It's really good. If you're a big Smash Bros. Player, you might enjoy this. The biggest issue though is it is very plasticky, and it really does feel weird when you're playing it. And amazingly, don't know if you saw, there is actually some dust on it. I just don't always feel super duper comfortable playing on this controller because it just does. It feels like sometimes it's gonna break, and it actually is kind of loud when it comes to all the button pressing and clicking. And don't know if you can hear that, but I don't know. It feels weirdly clicky and weirdly plasticky, almost like it's gonna break if I handle it too hard. I mean, heck, years ago I actually popped off the little nub on my 3DS when I was playing Smash Bros. So Smash Bros. Playing with this can get a little intense and weird if you're not careful. Okay, now there's also not just knockoff Xbox controllers, knockoff GameCube controllers, but there's also knockoff Super Nintendo controllers. Even though you could say this controller is somewhat useless, because Nintendo actually does make an official wireless Super Nintendo controller and even an official Super NES controller. But this was online for, I think, again, like $25 by some generic Chinese manufacturer. You actually can use this with PC, and it actually does work really well. It feels really good. I played a few 2D action games, and you know what? I had a blast with all the games, and I almost want to say it made playing the games a little bit better. I also tried a little bit with Mario 64. I was hoping I could use it kind of like a 64 controller. Maybe the GameCube controller would be a better, like, in between, but still. Really good controller if you don't want to pay the full price for the Super Nintendo controller that Nintendo has, or the NES controller that Nintendo has. This is a good option. So, yeah. Okay, now enough with the cheap Chinese generic brands that Nintendo is probably in the process of suing right now, and that's why the listings always change every few months. But now we're moving on to the Power A Nintendo Switch Pro controller. So, this is actually one of the older ones. Power A was one of the very first companies to start making third party. Well, this one's officially licensed by Nintendo, that's why it has Mario on it. But they're one of the first companies to do official licensed Nintendo Switch controller. They also have the greatest varieties of colors and characters on them. Just so many partnerships, so many varieties of colors and combination, and these are actually very, very good controllers. I use this one. I put this one down for a while for some reason. I can't forget exactly why. But then I decided to pick it back up and realized, it's not that bad of a controller. The only problem is that compared to all the other controllers in this lineup, this is also one of the most expensive controllers. I believe I paid almost like $40 or $50 for this one. So unfortunately, it's really not doing you too many favors in terms of price. Um, and you're actually sacrificing a lot more than almost all the other controllers. All the controllers up to this point, they were all able to connect wirelessly. They were all able to have Rumble support. One of them actually had Amiibo support, but this one does not have Rumble. It does not have Amiibo support. So yeah, you're losing some features just to have a more official controller. The bright side is, since it is an official controller, you can actually start up the Nintendo Switch with this controller rather than turn on the Nintendo Switch and then pair up to the controller. So that is one positive to this. Unfortunately, there are two negatives. So that's one reason why maybe I stepped away from this controller. Okay, so now we probably have what I'm going to call the most expensive controller on this list, and that is this guy. Yes, I know it's just a pair of Joy-Cons, but still. These are actually the special Mario Edition Red Joy-Cons. They are very rare. They're very, well, what's so special about them? They're just red. That's it. They're a special variant of red. They're not the neon red. They are just Mario red, if that makes any sense. They're the same color that Mario's hat and suit that he wears in the games. So that's really the only difference. They are super expensive just because they only made these Joy-Cons for a limited time, and it was mainly only in Japan where they sold them separately, I believe. And you can only get these Joy-Cons separately in America if you bought a special edition Nintendo Switch. So a lot of specialness there. But yeah, they're the most expensive controllers in my collection. And unfortunately, they are Joy-Cons, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Joy-Cons. The only problem is Joy-Con drift. Amazingly, these ones have not experienced any form of Joy-Con drift, thank God. I really don't want to be swapping out parts on Super Limited Edition controller. But the real problem with Joy-Con drift is I have the Joy-Cons that came with my Nintendo Switch. They started drifting almost immediately. And I've already swapped out the joystick on the right joystick, amazingly, like 2 times now at this point. So that is one unfortunate thing that I kind of worry about with Joy-Cons. They're a ticking time bomb. These ones are really nice, but still, I'm a little concerned I'm going to be experiencing Joy-Con drift. I want to say it's still an issue to this day. There's a reason Nintendo's getting sued for Joy-Con drift. Also, like I said, Joy-Cons come in at the most expensive controller option for Nintendo Switch. The regular ones are about $80. Well, I think they've actually gone down in price to maybe $60 or $70, but they're very expensive, and I do worry about them. Those red Mario Edition Joy-Cons, I was able to get them for about $75. But if you go on eBay right now, you can order them. You can get them. It's just going to cost you about $200. So, like I said, the most expensive controllers here, and for all I know, they could fail on me in the near future. So, keep that in mind if you get some kind of special edition controller for the Nintendo Switch. I would highly recommend actually going with the PowerA options, just because of so many varieties of controllers. And it's like gonna be, like, I almost want to start collecting PowerA controllers, just because of how much of a variety they have. Just in colors and just in shapes, because they also do an official GameCube edition of PowerA controllers, and they're very. I've only seen other people talk about them, but they look very good. Supposedly work really well, and yeah. So if you really want a controller, maybe go for the PowerA. If you want something official and something you just walk into a store and buy, all the other controllers you really have to do well. For most of the controllers that I've shown you, you can order them all on the internet. But still, with PowerA, you can walk into a store, pay the money. It's cheaper than the regular Pro controller or even the Joy-Cons, and you got yourself a really good controller. Okay, everybody, that's pretty much everything I have to say about all the controller options for the Nintendo Switch. So, I'm the X Gamer, and I got a game to play.